When your daughter asks to try a sport like wrestling, your first reaction might be a fear of injury, fear of unknown, or a fear of, is this really right for her? Today, we're going to talk openly about those fears and what many parents discover once they say yes. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Illinois Girls Wrestling Podcast, the show that strives to create a supportive community for Illinois girls wrestling through storytelling and expert insights so that athletes, coaches, and families feel connected and empowered. Can this podcast be helpful for boys? Absolutely. We're sharing a lot of great information about wrestling that boys can learn from. However, we also wanted to give girls and their families a space they can call their own. I am your host, Lena, and today we're diving into a topic that I know many parents grapple with. I'm hesitant about letting my daughter wrestle. Whether you are a parent listening in or someone involved in the wrestling community, this episode is all about addressing those hesitations and shining a light on why girls wrestling is an incredible opportunity. Let's start by acknowledging some of the common concerns parents have about letting their daughters wrestle. Safety often tops the list. Wrestling is a physical sport, and the fears of injuries are valid. There is also the perception of wrestling as a male-dominated sport, which can feel intimidating. Some parents worry about their daughters competing against boys, or whether wrestling will fit their personalities. These concerns are real, but today we will hear from people who have faced them head-on and gained a new perspective. Let's start with the parents' perspective. Joining us today is Peggy Deal. She is a parent of a high school freshman who has been on the wrestling scene for a few years. How many years has it been?
It was 2 years last August. So 2 years, August 2025.
Tell us a little bit about your daughter and what sports she tried before wrestling. I know there is a list.
There's a long list. Yeah, I think we counted 14, but the ones that really stand out, of course, she did gymnastics as a little kid, and which transformed into dance. Then she really took the figure skating, became a competitive figure skater, did that for quite a few years. Super nice figure skating, and then that morphed into hockey, which was her first sport that allowed her to be combative, I guess. And she was a really good skater already. So the boys didn't like, learning the game of hockey and getting creamed by a girl. So that was kind of fun. But she did try tackle football one year. I really enjoyed that. Basketball, volleyball, softball. And then, oh, wait, she did do water polo. That was a great sport.
For whom? You or
But
her?
then she settled for me only. I remember after her first practice in water polo, she got out of the water and I put a towel around her and I said, "Kate, how are you doing? How was practice?" She said, "Mom, I'm just trying to not die." That was-
It's funny. So my daughter was a competitive she was a competitive swimmer for years, and somebody suggested that she tries water polo, and her and a couple of other swim girls went and they did water polo. She comes out of the water and she goes, "Never again."
The girls are fierce in that sport. My son was on the boys' team, my daughter was on the girls' team, and the girls drew a crowd.
Oh.
They are fierce, and it is a really fun game to watch. I would not do it myself.
So what was your first thought when your daughter wanted to try wrestling?
I was excited. Growing up, I grew up in a household of 3 boys and me. There wasn't even a thought of me wrestling back in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. Not a thought. And I got to support my brothers and my whole family got into it. So I grew up with it and I know the level of commitment it takes, the workouts, you get to participate in and the growth in strength and mental capabilities and mental strength and keeping a positive mental attitude. All that stuff was incorporated into my family, and I watched it change for the positive. And I was really excited when Kate said that she had an interest in trying wrestling.
And I definitely see a lot of support from your family. I see your parents always there, and Kate is never on the mat alone. She always has her little cheer team.
And well, for me, I yes, I want to be there to support her like that. But for me, if something should happen, which I don't automatically assume there's any kind of injury or anything going to happen, what I've found is it's better for me to be there and see it so that I can explain it to just at this last meet we were at, she kind of bumped her knee and it wasn't a big deal, but I knew that not from a phone call. I saw it. I knew that, hey, we're gonna have to ice this a little bit, but she's gonna be good to go in 2 days.
Oh,
So this is a personal parental choice to do that. Some kids don't do well when their parents are there watching a practice.
mhm.
Mine does. So
Uh-huh. Did you have any other concerns when you first considered wrestling as a sport?
not for Kate. I wanted her to be part of something that she could enjoy and love. Kate is an incredibly competitive person. So the team sports were not something that she excelled in because she would get angry. I guess I can't, tippy toe around that. I started to teach my kids that a softball game, a volleyball game, a football game cannot be won or lost in one play. There's no blame. You have a first quarter. You can't win or lose it in total in one play in the fourth quarter. Wrestling for her is great because it puts the onus on her. She wins the match or she loses the match, and that's it. But really, no concern about the actual sport and my daughter.
What has your experience been like as a wrestling mom over the last 2 years?
I've learned that I can get into my cardio zone on my watch just by watching my daughter wrestle. I've had those stressful moments and then had to decompress. The journey with Kate and wrestling has been mostly positive. So I enjoy seeing her grow in the sport. And she's really sunk into this as something that she loves and it's part of her life now. So dealing with the ups and downs of wins, losses, good practices, bad practices, just kind of all encompassing things she's going through with, schoolwork and friends and then wrestling. It's a lot, but it's mostly positive.
Mhm.
So as a parent to see my daughter happy and succeeding and continuing to grow, she's on a good steady trajectory to being a pretty good wrestler at
Oh,
some point. Yeah.
and how do you support your daughter on and off the mat to make sure that she keeps on going in the right direction?
Healthy food, making sure she goes to bed and, is off her phone, headphones at a respectable time and gets enough rest, drinks enough water, mainly putting the right foods into her body, staying away from processed stuff. That helps a lot. Getting her to practice, we don't miss practice. She's in the car before I am.
Mhm.
And that's a real motivation for me because I've never had to say, hey, Kate, no, you can't do that. You got to go to practice. She already knows. She's motivated to go. And we're there. We take her. If I can't take her, then one of my parents take her, or my son, her brother will take her. But she gets there. And I think that that's the key for a parent to enable their non driving wrestler to be successful.
As a mother, what do you do when the things get tough on the mat?
I tend to kind of go into, all right, what if what if this goes south? What if this is the worst case scenario? You don't want to go into a match thinking my kid's not going to beat this person. I never go into a match like that because I've been proven wrong so many times. And it's a great realization when I guess it's good and bad when you realize that you've doubted your wrestler. But I've made a mental switch of don't doubt her, let her do her thing. But when I do see it start going south, I think, all right, she's going to be mad. How do I react? It counts the way I react. So in general, I will let her walk past me in in, all of her frustration. And if that makes her feel better, that's fine with me. I don't need to throw my arms around her and tell her everything's okay. I think that kind of dismissal of me is helps her get that frustration out. So if that's what it is, then so be it. It's fine. I can take that. I can't imagine going out on the mat and getting destroyed. And, you know, after all the work that she puts in at practice and the blood, sweat, and tears, and then the feeling of possibly feeling embarrassed. I'm saying that out of my own words. She's never told me that she feels embarrassed, but I can only imagine that that's got to be one of the emotions that goes through a referee's head. But I can absorb that. I'm the adult. Talk to him when you can, and we move on.
What advice would you give a parent who might be hesitant about letting their daughter wrestle?
I would advise the parent to answer the question of, is it a bias that they have against wrestling? Is it the fear of being injured, their child being injured? What is it that would keep a parent from allowing a child to pursue a sport? If we're talking high school, most high schools have a wrestling program in Illinois, and a lot of kids do it. A lot of kids are successful with it, and a lot of kids do it to help other sports. Wrestling will help a football player be a better football player, or a softball player be a better softball player. What is the hesitation? And ask themselves, is it them? Would they not enjoy wrestling? That's probably very true. Kate asks if she can practice moves on me, and I'm like, no, thank you. I want no part of that. So what is the hesitation? I believe soccer has the highest injury rates. I mean, who would have thought that over wrestling? Another thing is the official or referee is in very close proximity to the girls wrestling. So that keeps injuries from happening, hopefully. I think that it's very personal. And if the parent is keeping their child or hesitant from letting their child get into wrestling because of their own bias, they really need to take a step back and think about that. There's a lot of positive points to wrestling. I think they outweigh the negative.
And if we're talking about community, and I'm guessing it's not the same going from school to school, from club to club. How do you find the wrestling community, the community of parents?
I love our parents. In my experience, Kate was at a club for a very, very short time in the beginning of her wrestling experience. And then we moved to the club that we're at now. And I have become very close to the parents on our team. The high school group, the parents are all very supportive. However, that's mostly on like a WhatsApp family chat. But in the club atmosphere, being able to sit with the parents and hear their stories and share information is one of the best parts about wrestling. I call it the neighborhood at at our club. And I enjoy sitting with the neighborhood and hearing about, all of the outside meets from the club and what's going on with their wrestler. And it's tight because our kids are really pushing themselves to the limits that I never did myself. And I love our parents.
And well, unfortunately, when it comes to the club, our kids do potentially might go against each other, or our high school teams can go against, your high school team. And it is really interesting to see how the club parents are still cheering the club kids on.
Always. Always. Even if they're not wrestling each other, I'm always finding who's on our club, who's the teammate of Kate's that I know. I see them every day. These girls don't miss practice. They're committed, and I want to see all of them be successful.
Yeah, no, this is incredible. This is honestly, as a parent, I never really expected myself to care so much about other kids that are not my kids. But
absolutely.
But you are seeing how much work they put on and off the mat to get where they're trying to go.
You bet. And it is tremendous.
Okay, any closing thoughts? Any last parting advices for new families?
I have a audio an Audible book because I don't ever have time to read because I'm always in the car driving someone to practice. But it's How to Succeed and Fail as a Wrestling Parent. Donovan Pannone. I'm probably mispronouncing his name, but if there's a parent out there who we talked a little bit about people or parents being hesitant and parents that are gung ho, for their kid to wrestle, that's a really good book with a lot of good points. How to Succeed and Fail as a Wrestling Parent is something that I have listened to in its entirety, and then I pick out certain chapters on my way to wrestling meets to kind of get ready for my role in this episode of Kate's life.
To balance the parents' view, let's hear directly from an athlete. Joining us today is Mirna Rahmani, a high school sophomore and a wrestler. Welcome to the studio, Mirna. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
So let's learn a little bit about yourself first.
Well, obviously, my name is Mirna. I wrestle at 130, and outside of wrestling, I do track and I lift.
Okay, so what made you try wrestling in the first place? Was it your idea, a friend, a coach? Did somebody talk you into it? How did you end up on the wrestling balcony?
No one really pushed me into wrestling, but I remember it was the summer before I began my freshman year, and I started seeing more girls wrestling online. And before that, I had never seen girls in the sport. And so just watching those videos of girls compete and dominate just grabbed my attention and made me feel like almost proud. I mean, it like looked strong and empowering. So I decided like I want to try wrestling and see what I could do.
Mhm. So what was your first practice like? Were you surprised or were you like, okay, this is what I was expecting?
I feel like my first practices were a bit intense. I had to learn fast and work hard than I had ever in any other sport. And it surprised me how mentally demanding wrestling is, not only physically. At first, it felt overwhelming, but I mean, as I stayed with it, I started to love the challenge.
If a parent says, I am nervous to let my daughter wrestle, what do you think they're most worried about?
I think most parents worry about injuries because wrestling is a combat sport, and that fear can stop girls before they can even try. I would honestly tell them that injuries happen in every sport, but good coaching, proper technique, and discipline make things safer. And wrestling gives girls strength, confidence, and resilience. I think it's worth it.
So, what safety rules or coaching habits make you feel that you are protected in a wrestling room?
I feel safe because we always have multiple coaches in the room, not only one. And they tend to watch everything closely and they teach technique the right way instead of just letting people wrestle wild. We warm up, we gel with control, and after that, we match partners by size and experience. And I feel like that structure makes me feel protected.
How has wrestling changed the way you carry yourself in school, in your daily life, especially for you being a girl wrestler?
Wrestling changed how I see myself. I gained discipline with training, nutrition, and mindset. But before wrestling, I had a weaker mindset and a lot of negative thoughts. But wrestling forced me to stay focused, tough, and patient. And so now I walk through school and tournaments with more confidence.
What's been your toughest moment so far?
My toughest time was probably my entire freshman season into early sophomore year. I kept losing and I just felt like waste potential. And I started to believe that no matter what I would do, I would lose no matter what. And especially watching teammates improve while I struggled hurt me a lot. It broke me mentally before, well, anyone could beat me physically. But what helped me was staying with it and trusting training and refusing to quit. I can say that I'm not that version of myself anymore. I feel stronger and more confident now.
So, what changed? You did not just wake up and say, hey, today I'm going to be stronger.
I feel that it is more mental than it is physical when you're in a match. And so I began thinking to myself, like, the losses that I have can only help me improve. They don't make me worse. And so I began recording my losses and just all my matches in general, wins or losses. And I would look back on them and I would say, hey, I did this thing good, but I did this thing not as good, and I should work on that. And once I started focusing on that, that's when I started improving more.
Did you also do any additional training during your off season?
Yes. So in the off season, I would go to a club called Built by Brunson. And I feel like that helped me a lot, as well as staying in track to keep up with the athletics and everything. And I feel like if I hadn't done any postseason or preseason, I would not be where I am today.
So let's talk about culture a little bit. How does it feel to be a girl on a girls' team?
Being a girl wrestler at Wheeling feels supportive. Our girls' team is very welcoming and kind. We push each other, but we also look out for each other. And even girls from other schools at tournaments show support. Like, the entire community feels strong. If anything, I would love like even more resources and recognition for girls wrestling because the sport keeps growing. And the coaches just make us feel like genuine athletes, and they take us serious despite us being girls in a male-dominated sport.
What do you feel parents should understand about wrestling that they might not?
I wish parents understood how much wrestling builds discipline and maturity and emotional strength, because it teaches you how to lose, how to respond, and how to work for wins. It also builds friendships and a real support system. The time commitment is real, but the growth you get out of it is worth it.
Mhm. If a nervous girl asks you about starting, what would you tell her about the expectations, let's say, in the first 2 weeks?
All right. So in the first few weeks, you will probably feel tired, sore, and overwhelmed. And that's completely normal. But as you begin to learn faster and your body begins to adjust, you'll start seeing progress and it'll feel rewarding, I feel. And my advice is to take it one step at a time, like coming to practice, talking to a coach, or even trying a clinic. And you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be brave enough to start.
What are your goals for this year?
My goals for this year is to to qualify for state specifically. That's one of my bigger goals. For my smaller goals, it's just improving my technique and improving my mindset even further.
You mentioned that last year you lost a lot. So how do you feel things are different this year?
So I feel like things are different this year because obviously I feel as if I have improved my mindset, and I've been focusing way more on technique. And when I watch back on videos, either wins or losses this season, I can tell that, things have improved.
Well, you heard from the parent and the athlete. Now let's go and talk to the coach. Back to studio with us today is David Tartarisi, coach for the Team Tartarisi and expert on all things wrestling. What are some misconceptions about girls wrestling?
Yeah, I would probably say that, again, kind of goes back to, I think both a little bit, where it's like, okay, you gotta cut a lot of weight to be competitive. I think that's a big misconception with wrestling. And I think we're doing a better job of it. And then also the other one is that, the girl athletes are not as serious, not as disciplined, not as competitive, all these different things. And I've kind of gotten frustrated sometimes where I think the intentions are there to be right, where coaches let certain things slide, about the discipline, about weigh-ins, all these kind of things. And I've said this out loud. I said, if we want these girls to be taken seriously, like they're trying to, they train, they do everything that they're trying to do. we can't do shortcuts on anything. So I think that's the big one, is that, maybe these girls don't take it as seriously.
Mhm. How safe is wrestling comparing to other sports?
Believe it or not, pretty darn safe, all things considered. Again, I've been around this a long time, and you definitely get banged up, you get hurt. Knees and shoulders are probably the most common, but thankfully head injuries really aren't that much of a thing. Concussions, especially compared to football and cheerleading, is actually the most common injury sport out there. So wrestling is kind of on the lower scale, all things considered. It's definitely not that dangerous. It's physical. It's really tough, but it's not no major injuries too often.
Okay. What are mental and physical benefits of wrestling when it comes to young women?
Oh gosh, I can't say enough, to be honest. There's a gentleman, Dan Gable, if you don't know who that is. He's one of the greatest coaches ever. I think he had 15 national titles. Don't quote me, everybody, but so it was very, very, very impressive. And he had this quote that said, "Once you've wrestled, everything in life gets easier," and that is unbelievably true. So if you can get through it, you just build this confidence in life. You put yourself through such difficult workouts and cutting weight and competing and being vulnerable, all these things, that when you're all said and done, you kind of walk with a chip on your shoulder in a good way.
Mm-hmm. What can parents do to ensure that their daughters have positive experience in wrestling?
Yeah, I can't say this enough. I think parents just need to be fans. Just be fans of their kids. Oftentimes I see high school athletes, I'll say high schoolers a little bit specifically, they've kind of hit that age where they don't really want to hear it from mom and dad too much. That's just normal. And so you just got to be supportive, be loving, be thankful. And, if your kid is liking it, I think that goes a really long way. Let the coaches be the tough ones. Let them push these kids, and heck, let them be the bad guy. Parents should just be the good people.
So I think the important thing for the parents is just to show up and sit there in the bleachers and give a hug when the hug is needed.
Yes, absolutely. And man, I'll be careful not to get on my soapbox, but it actually drives me ballistic that there's parents that, and I'm not going to say that everybody's situation, because I don't know, right? Everybody's got something going on, but it makes me sad that I never see parents show up sometimes, ever, not one match. And it's depressing. So I hope parents get out there and, show up.
Okay. To all parents listening, it's natural to have hesitations about trying something new, especially in a sport like wrestling. But as we heard today, the benefits far outweigh the concerns. Wrestling can be a transformative experience for young women. If you are on the fence, I encourage you to attend a local tournament, talk to other parents, or even bring your daughter to a practice to see what that's all about. Thank you for tuning into today's episode. If you enjoyed the discussion, make sure to subscribe, share, and leave us a review. Have a question or topic you want us to cover? Drop us a message on social media. We are on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. You can also email us at ilgirlswrestling@gmail.com. Until next time.